You're listening to Midwest Coven Cast presents Weekend Reads. I'm Marilyn of Midwest Coven Cast, and each week I will be reading to you, dear listeners, occult works that are in the public domain. All of this I do with the goal of helping each of us grow in our knowledge and practices. Here in Season 1, we will be making our way through Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy or magic, published in 1531. I hope you enjoy this week's installment. Chapter 40. Of Bindings, what sort they are of, and in what ways they are wont to be done. We have spoken concerning the virtues and wonderful efficacy of natural things. It remains now that we understand a thing of great wonderment, and it is a binding of men into love or hatred, sickness or health, or such like. Also the binding of thieves and robbers, that they cannot steal in any place. The binding of merchants, that they cannot buy or sell in any place. The binding of any army, that they cannot pass over any bound. The binding of ships, that no winds, though never so strong, shall be able to carry them out of the haven. Also the binding of a mill, that it can by no force whatsoever be turned round. The binding of a cistern or fountain, that the water cannot be drawn up out of them. The binding of the ground, that it cannot bring forth fruit. The binding of any place, that nothing can be built upon it. The binding of fire, that though it be never so strong, can burn no combustible thing that is put to it. Also the bindings of lightnings and tempests, that they shall do no hurt. The binding of dogs, that they cannot bark. The binding of birds and wild beasts, that they shall not be able to fly or run away. And such like these, which are scarce, credible, yet often known by experience. Now, there are such kind of bindings as these made by sorceries, collieries, unguents, and love potions, by binding to or hanging up of things, by rings, by charms, by strong imaginations and passions, by images and characters, by enchantments and imprecations, by lights, by numbers, by sounds, by words and names, invocations and sacrifices, by swearing, conjuring, consecrations, devotions, and by diverse superstitions and observations, and such like. Chapter 41. Of Sorceries and their Power. The force of sorceries is reported to be so great that they are believed to be able to subvert, consume, and change all inferior things, according to Virgil's Muse. Mors for me these herbs in Pontus chose, and curious drugs for their great plenty grows. I many times with these have more spied, changed to a wolf, and in the woods to hide. From sepulchres would souls departed charm, and corn bear standing from another's farm. Also in another place, concerning the companions of Ulysses, whom the cruel goddess Circe there invests with fierce aspects, and changed to savage beasts. And a little after, when love from Picus Circe would not gain, him with her charming wand and hellish bane, changed to a bird, and spots his speckled wings with sundry colors. Now, there are some kinds of these sorceries mentioned by Lucan concerning that sorceress, Thessala, calling up ghosts, where he saith, "Here all nature's products unfortunate, foam of mad dogs which waters fear and hate, guts of lynx, hyenas not inbred, the marrow of a hart with serpents fed, were not wanting, no, nor the sea lamprey, which stops the ships, nor yet the dragon's eye." And such as Apuleius tells of concerning Pamphylia, that sorceress, endeavoring to procure love, to whom Fotis, a certain maid, brought the hairs of a goat, caught off from a bag or bottle made with the skin thereof, instead of Boeotis's, a young man, hair. Now she, saith Apuleius, being out of her wits for the young man, goeth up to the tiled roof, and in the upper part thereof makes a great hole open to all the oriental and other aspects. and most fit for these her arts, and there privately worships, having before furnished her mournful house with suitable furniture, with all kinds of spices, with plates of iron, with strange words engraven upon them, with parts of sterns of ships that were cast away, and much lamented, and with divers members of buried carcasses cast abroad, here noses and fingers, there the fleshy nails of those that were hanged, and in another place the blood of them that were murdered, and their skulls mangled with the teeth of wild beasts. Then she offers sacrifices, their enchanted entrails lying panting, and sprinkles them with divers kinds of liquors, sometimes with fountain water, sometimes with cow's milk, sometimes with mountain honey and mead. Then she ties those hairs into knots, and lays them on the fire, with divers odors to be burnt. Then presently, with an irresistible power of magic, and blind force of the gods, the bodies of those whose hairs did smoke, and crash, did assume the spirit of a man, and feel, and hear, and walk, and come whither the stink of their hair led them, and instead of Boetius, the young man come skipping and leaping with joy and love into the house. Austin also reports that he heard of some women sorceresses that were so well versed in these kind of arts that by giving cheese to men they could presently turn them into working cattle, and the work being done restored them into men again. Chapter 42. Of the wonderful virtues of some kinds of sorceries. Now I will show you that some of the sorceries are, that by the example of these there may be a way opened for the consideration of the whole subject of them. Of these, therefore, the first is the catamenia, which, how much power it hath in sorcery, we will now consider. For as they say, if it comes over new wine, it makes it sour, and if it doth but touch the vine, it spoils it forever. And by its very touch, it makes all plants and trees barren. And they that be newly set to die, it burns up all the herbs in the garden, and makes fruit fall off from the trees. It darkens the brightness of a looking glass, dulls the edges of knives and razors, and dims the beauty of ivory. It makes iron presently rust. It makes brass rust, and smell very strong. It makes dogs mad, if they do but taste of it. And if they, being thus mad, shall bite anyone, that wound is incurable. It kills whole hives of bees, and drives them from the hives that are but touched with it. It makes linen black that is boiled with it. It makes mares cast their foal, if they do but touch it, and makes asses barren, as long as they eat of the corn that hath been touched with it. The ashes of catamenious clothes, if they be cast upon purple garments that are to be washed, change the color of them, and takes away colors from flowers. They say that it drives away tertian and quartan agues, if it be put into the wool of a black ram, and tied up in a silver bracelet, as also if the soles of the patient's feet be anointed therewith, and especially if it be done by the woman herself, the patient not knowing of it. Moreover, it cures the fits of the falling sickness, but most especially it cures them that are afraid of water, or drink after they are bitten with a mad dog, if only a catamonious cloth be put under the cup. Besides, they report that if catamonious persons shall walk, being nude, about the standing corn, they make all cankers, worms, beetles, flies, and all hurtful things to fall off from the corn. But they must take heed that they do it before sunrising, or else they will make the corn to wither. Also, they say, they are able to expel hail, tempests, and lightnings, more of which Pliny makes mention of. Know this, that they are a greater poison if they happen in the decrease of the moon, and yet much greater if they happen betwixt the decrease and change of the moon. But if they happen in the eclipse of the moon or the sun, they are an incurable poison. But they are of greatest force of all, when they happen in the first early years, even in the years of virginity, for if they do but touch the posts of the house, there can be no mischief take effect in it. Also, they say that the threads of any garment touched therewith cannot be burnt, and if they be cast into the fire, it will spread no further. Also, it is said that the root of peony, being given with castor oil, smeared over, using the catamonious cloth, cureth the falling sickness. Moreover, if the stomach of a hart be burnt or roasted, and to it be put a perfuming made with a catamonious cloth, it will make crossbows useless for the killing of any game. The hairs of a catamonious person, put under compost, breed serpents, and if they be burnt, will drive away serpents with their smell. So great a poisonous force is in them that they are poisonous to poisonous creatures. There is also hippomanes, which amongst sorceries is not the least taken notice of, and it is a little venomous piece of flesh as big as a fig, and black, which is in the forehead of a colt newly foaled, which unless the mare herself presently eat, she will never after love her foal or let it suckle. And for this cause, they say there is a most wonderful power in it to procure love, if it be powdered and drank in a cup with the blood of him that is in love. There is also another sorcery of the same name, hippomanes, a venomous humor of the mare in the mating season, of which Virgil makes mention when he sings. Hence comes that poison which the shepherds call hippomanes, and from the mares doth fall, the woeful bane which cruel stepdames use, and with a charm mongst powerful drugs infuse. Of this doth Juvenal the satirist make mention. Hippomanes, poisons that boiled are, and charms are given to sons-in-law with such like harms. Apollonius also, in his Agronautica, makes mention of the herb of Prometheus, which he saith groweth from corrupt blood dropping upon the earth, whilst the vulture was gnawing upon the liver of Prometheus upon the hill Caucasus. The flower of this herb, he saith, is like saffron, having a double stalk, hanging out one further than the other, the length of a cubit. The root under the earth, as flesh newly cut, sends forth a blackish juice, as it were of a beech, with which, saith he, if any one shall, after he hath performed his devotion to Proserpina, smear over his body, he cannot be hurt either with sword or fire. Also, Saxo Grammaticus writes that there was a certain man called Photon, who had a garment which when he had put on was such he could not be hurt with the point or edge of any weapon. The civet cat also abounds with sorceries, for as Pliny reports, the posts of a door being touched with her blood, the arts of jugglers and sorcerers are so invalid that the gods cannot be called up, and will by no means be persuaded to talk with them. Also, that they are anointed with the ashes of the ankle bone of her left foot, being decocted with the blood of a weasel, shall become odious to all. The same also is done with the eye being decocted. Also, it is said that the straight gut is administered against the injustice and corruption of princes and great men in power, and for success of petitions, and to conduce to the ending of suits and controversies, if any one hath never so little of it about him. And that if it be bound unto the left arm, it is such a perfect charm, that if any man do but look upon a woman, it will make her follow him presently, and that the skin of the civet cat's forehead doth withstand bewitchings. They say also that the blood of a basilisk, which they call the blood of Saturn, hath such great force in sorcery, that it procures for him that carries it about him good success of his petitions from great men in power, and of his prayers from God, and also remedies of diseases, and grant of any privilege. They say also that a tick, if it be pulled out of the left ear of a dog, and if be it is altogether black, hath great virtue in the prognosticating of life. For if the sick party shall answer him that brought it in, and who standing at his feet shall ask of him concerning his disease, there is certain hope of life, and that he shall die if he make no answer. They say also that a stone that is bit with a mad dog hath power to cause discord, if it be put in drink, and that he shall not be barked at by dogs that puts the tongue of a dog in his shoe, under his great toe, especially if the herb of the same name, viz., hound's tongue, be joined with it, and that a membrane of the secondines of a dog doth the same, and that dogs will shun him that hath a dog's heart. And Pliny reports that there is a red toad that lives in briars and brambles, and is full of sorceries, and doth wonderful things, for the little bone, which is in his left side, being cast into cold water, makes it presently very hot, and by which also the rage of dogs is restrained, and their love is procured, if it be put in their drink. And if it be bound to any one, it stirreth up desire. On the contrary, the little bone, which is on the right side, makes hot water cold, and that it can never be hot again unless that be taken out. Also it is said to cure quartans, if it be bound to the sick in a snake's skin, as also all other fevers, and to restrain love and desire, and that the spleen and heart is an effectual remedy against the poisons of the said toad. Thus much Pliny writes. Also it is said that the sword with which a man is slain hath wonderful power and sorceries. For, if the snaffle of the bridle or spurs be made of it, they say that with these any horse, though never so wild, may be tamed and gentled. And that if a horse should be shod with shoes made of it, he would be most swift and fleet, and never, though never so hard rode, tire. But yet they will that some certain characters and names should be written upon it. They say also, if any man shall dip a sword, wherewith men were beheaded, in wine, and the sick drink thereof, he shall be cured of his quartan. They say also, that a cup of liquor, being made with the brains of a bear, and drank out of the skull, shall make him that drinks it to be as fierce and as raging as a bear, and think himself to be changed into a bear, and judge all things he sees to be bears, and so to continue in that madness until the force of that draught shall be dissolved, no other distemper being all this while perceived in him. Chapter 43. Of perfumes or suffumigations, their manner and power. Some suffumigations also, or perfumings, that are proper to the stars, are of great force for the opportune receiving of celestial gifts under the rays of the stars, inasmuch as they do strongly work upon the air and breath. For our breath is very much changed by such kind of vapors, if both vapors be of another like. The air, also being through the said vapors easily moved or affected with the qualities of inferiors or those celestial daily, and quickly penetrating our breast and vitals, doth wonderfully reduce us to the like qualities. Wherefore suffumigations are wont to be used by them that are about to soothsay or predict, for to affect their fancy or conception, which suffumigation, indeed, being duly appropriated to any certain deities, do fit us to receive divine inspiration. So they say that fumes made with linseed, fleabane seed, roots of violets, and parsley, doth make one to foresee things to come, and doth conduce to prophesying. Let no man wonder how great things suffumigations can do in the air, especially when he shall with Porphyrius consider that by certain vapors exhaling from proper suffumigations, airy spirits are presently raised, as also thunderings and lightnings, and such like things. As the liver of a chameleon, being burnt on the top of the house, doth, as it manifest, raise showers and lightnings. In like manner, the head and throat of the chameleon, if they be burnt with oaken wood, cause storms and lightnings. There are also suffumigations under opportune influences of the stars that make the images of spirits forthwith appear in the air or elsewhere. So they say that if of coriander, smallage, henbane, and hemlock be made a fume, that spirits will presently come together. Hence they are called spirits' herbs. Also it is said that a fume made of the root of the reedy herb sagapen, with the juice of hemlock and henbane, and the herb Tapsus barbatus, red sanders, and black poppy, makes spirits and strange shapes appear. And if smallage be added to them, the fume chaseth away spirits from any place, and destroys their visions. In like manner, a fume made of calamint, peony, mince, and palma Christi drives away all evil spirits and vain imaginations. Moreover, it is said that by certain fumes certain animals are gathered together, and also put to flight. As Pliny mentions concerning the stone Liparis, that with the fume thereof all beasts are called out, so the bones in the upper part of the throat of a hart being burnt together, all the serpents together. But the horn of the hart, being burnt, doth with its fume chase them all away. The same doth a fume of the feathers of peacocks. Also the lungs of an ass, being burnt, puts all poisonous things to flight. The fume of the burnt hoof of a horse drives away mice. The same doth the hoof of a mule. With which also, if it be the hoof of the left foot, flies are driven away. And they say, if a house or any place be smoked with the gall of a cuttlefish, made into a confection with red storax, roses, and lignum aloes, or lignalos, and if then there be some sea water or blood cast into that place, the whole house will seem to be full of water or blood. And if some earth of plowed ground be cast there, the earth will seem to quake. Now, such kinds of vapors we must conceive do infect any body, and infuse a virtue into it, which doth continue long, even as any contagious or poisonous vapor of the pestilence, being kept for 2 years in a wall of a house, infects the inhabitants, and as the contagion of pestilence or leprosy, lying hid in a garment, doth long after infect him that wears it. Therefore were certain suffumigations used to effect images, rings, and such like instruments of magic, and hidden treasures, and, as Porphyus saith, very effectually. So, they say, if any one shall hide gold or silver, or any other precious thing, the moon being in conjunction with the sun, and shall fume the hiding place with coriander, saffron, henbane, smallage, and black poppy, of each a like quantity, bruised together and tempered with the juice of hemlock, that which is so hid shall never be found or taken away, and that spirits shall continually keep it. And if any one shall endeavor to take it away, he shall be hurt by them, and shall fall into a frenzy. And Hermes saith, there is nothing like the fume of spermaceti for the raising of spirits. Wherefore, if a fume be made of that, and lignum aloes, red storax, pepperwort, musk, and saffron, all tempered together with the blood of a lapwing, it will quickly gather airy spirits together. And if it be used about the graves of the dead, it gathers together spirits, and the ghosts of the dead. So as often as we direct any work to the sun, we must make suffumigations with solary things, and if to the moon, the lunary things, and so of the rest. And we must know that as there is a contrariety and enmity in the stars and spirits, so also in suffumigations unto the same. So there is also a contrariety betwixt lignum aloes, and sulphur, frankincense, and quicksilver. Therefore spirits that are raised by the fume of lignum aloes are allayed by the burning of sulphur. As Proclus gives an example of a spirit, which was wont to appear in the form of a lion, but by the setting of a cock before it, vanished away, because there is a contrariety betwixt a cock and a lion, and so the like consideration and practice is to be observed concerning such like things. Chapter 44. The composition of some fumes appropriated to the planets. We make suffumigation for the sun in this manner, viz. Of saffron, ambergris, musk, lignum aloes, lignum balsam, the fruit of the laurel, cloves, myrrh, and frankincense, all which being bruised and mixed in such a proportion as may make a sweet odor, must be incorporated with the brain of an eagle, or the blood of a white cock, after the manner of pills or trochs. For the moon we make suffumigation of the head of a dried frog, the eyes of a bull, the seed of a white poppy, frankincense, and camphor, which must be incorporated with catamenia, or the blood of a goose. For Saturn, take black poppy seed, henbane, root of mandrake, the lodestone, and myrrh, and make them up with the brain of a cat, or the blood of a bat. For Jupiter, take the seed of ash, lignum aloes, storax, the gum benjamin, or benzoin, the lazuli stone, and the tops of the feathers of a peacock, and incorporate them with the blood of a stork or a swallow, or the brain of a hart. For Mars, take euphorbium, bdellium, gum ammoniac, the roots of both hellebores, the lodestone, and a little sulphur, and incorporate them all with the brain of a hart, the blood of a man, and the blood of a black cat. For Venus, take musk, ambergris, lignum aloes, red roses, and red coral, and make them up with the brain of sparrows and the blood of pigeons. For Mercury, take mastic, frankincense, cloves, the herb cinquefoil, and the stone agate, and incorporate them all with the brain of a fox or weasel, and the blood of a magpie. Besides, to Saturn are appropriated for fumes all odoriferous roots, as pepperwort root, etc., and the frankincense tree. To Jupiter, odoriferous trees, as nutmeg and cloves. To Mars, all odoriferous woods, as sanders, cypress, lignum balsam, and lignum aloes. To the Sun, all gums, frankincense, mastic, benjamin, storax, ladanum, ambergris, and musk. To Venus, sweet flowers, as roses, violets, saffron, and such like. To Mercury, all the peels of wood and fruit, as cinnamon, lignum cassia, mace, citron or lemon peel, and bayberries, and whatsoever seeds are odoriferous. To the Moon, the leaves of all vegetables, as the leaf indum, and the leaves of the myrtle and bay tree. Know, also, that according to the opinion of the magicians, in every good matter, as love, goodwill, and the like, there must be a good fume, odoriferous and precious, and in every evil matter, as hatred, anger, misery, and the like, there must be a stinking fume, that is of no worth. The 12 signs also of the zodiac have their proper fumes, as Aries hath myrrh, Taurus pepperwort, Gemini mastic, Cancer camphor, Leo frankincense, Virgo sanders, Libra galbanum, Scorpio opopanax, Sagittarius lignum aloes, Capricornus benjamin, Aquarius euphorbium, Pisces red storax. But Hermes describes the most powerful fume to be that which is compounded of the 7 aromatics, according to the powers of the 7 planets, for it receives from Saturn pepperwort, from Jupiter nutmeg, from Mars lignum aloes, from the Sun mastic, from Venus saffron, from Mercury cinnamon, and from the Moon the myrtle. Chapter 45. Of cauleries, unctions, love medicines, and their virtues. Moreover, cauleries and unguents, conveying the virtues of things natural and celestial to our spirit, can multiply, transmute, transfigure, and transform it accordingly, as also transpose those virtues which are in them into it, and transform it accordingly, as also transpose those virtues which are in them into it. That so it cannot act only upon its own body, but also upon that which is near it, and affect that by visible rays, charms, and by touching it with some like quality. For because our spirit is the subtile, pure, lucid, airy, and unctuous vapor of the blood, it is therefore fit to make cauleries of the like vapors, which are more suitable to our spirit and substance, for then, by reason of their likeness, they do the more stir up, attract, and transform the spirit. The like virtues have certain ointments and other confections. Hence by the touch sometimes sickness, poisonings, and love is induced. Some things, as the hands or garments, being anointed. Also by kisses, some things being held in the mouth, love is induced. As in Virgil we read that Venus prays Cupid, that when glad Dido hugs him in her lap, at royal feast crowned with the cheering grape, when she, embracing, shall sweet kisses give, inspire hid flame, with deadly bane deceive, he would. Now the sight, because it perceives more purely and clearly than the other senses, and fastening in us the marks of things more acutely and deeply, doth most of all, and before others, agree with the fantastic spirit, as is apparent in dreams, when things seen do more often present themselves to us than things heard, or anything coming under the other senses. Therefore, when cauleries or eye waters transform visual spirits, the spirit doth easily affect the imagination, which indeed, being affected with diverse species and forms, transmits the same by the same spirit unto the outward sense of sight, by which occasion there is caused in it a perception of such species and forms in that manner, as if it were moved by external objects, and there seemed to be seen terrible images and spirits and such like. So there are cauleries making us forthwith to see the images of spirits in the air or elsewhere, as I know how to make of the gall of a man, and the eyes of a black cat, and of some other things. The like is made also of the blood of a lapwing, of a bat, and a goat. And they say, if a smooth shining piece of steel be smeared over with the juice of mugwort, and made to fume, it will make invoked spirits to be seen in it. So, also, there are some suffumigations or unctions, which make men speak in their sleep, to walk, and to do those things which are done by men that are awake, and sometimes to do those things which men that are awake cannot or dare not do. Some there are that make us to hear horrid or delectable sounds, and such like. And this is the cause why maniacal and melancholy men believe they see and hear those things without which their imagination doth only fancy within. Hence they fear things not to be feared, and fall into wonderful and most false suspicions, and fly when none pursueth them. Are also angry and contend, nobody being present, and fear where no fear is. Such like passions also can magical confections induce, by suffumigations, by choleries, by unguents, by potions, by poisons, by lamps and lights, by looking glasses, by images, enchantments, charms, sounds, and music. Also by divers rites, observations, ceremonies, religions, and superstitions, all which shall be handled in their places. And not only by these kinds of arts are passions, apparitions, and images induced, but also things themselves, which are really changed and transfigured into diverse forms, as the poet relates of Proteus, Periclemenus, Achelous, and Mara, the daughter of Erysichthon. So also Circe changed the companions of Ulysses, and of old in the sacrifices of Jupiter Lycaeus. The men that tasted of the inwards of the sacrifices were turned into wolves, which Pliny saith befell a certain man called Demarchus. The same opinion was Austin of, for he saith, whilst he was in Italy, he heard of some women that by giving sorceries and cheese to travellers turned them into working cattle. And when they had done such work as they would have them, turned them into men again, and that this befell a certain priest called Prestantius. The scriptures themselves testify that Pharaoh's sorcerers turned their rods into serpents, and water into blood, and did other such like things. Chapter 46. Of natural allegations and suspensions. When the soul of the world by its virtue doth make all things that are naturally generated or artificially made to be fruitful, by infusing into them celestial properties for the workings of some wonderful effects, then things themselves, not only when applied by suffumigations or choleries or ointments or potions or any other such like way, but also when they, being conveniently wrapped up, are bound to or hanged about the neck, or in any other way applied, although by never so easy a contact, do impress their virtue upon us. By these allegations, therefore, suspensions, wrappings up, applications, and contacts, the accidents of the body and mind are changed into sickness, health, boldness, fear, sadness, and joy, and the like. They render them that carry them gracious or terrible, acceptable or rejected, honored and beloved, or hateful and abominable. Now these kind of passions are conceived to be by the above said to be infused, and not otherwise, like what is manifest in the grafting of trees, where the vital virtue is sent and communicated from the trunk to the twig grafted into it, by way of contact and alligation. So in the female palm tree, when she comes near to the male, her boughs bend to the male, and are bowed, which the gardeners seeing bind ropes from the male to the female, which becomes straight again, as if she had by this connection of the rope received the virtue of the male. In like manner, we see that the crampfish, or torpedo, being touched afar off with a long pole, doth presently stupefy the hand of him that toucheth it. And if any shall touch the sea hare with his hand or stick, will presently run out of his wits. Also, if the fish called Stella, or starfish, as they say, being fastened with the blood of a fox and a brass nail to a gate, evil medicines can do no hurt to any in such house. Also, it is said that if a woman take a needle and bewray it with dung, and then wrap it up in earth, in which the carcass of a man was buried, and shall carry it about her in a cloth which was used at the funeral, that she shall be able to possess herself so long as she hath it about her. Now, by these examples, we see how, by certain allegations of certain things, as also suspensions, or by a simple contact, or the connection or continuation of any thread, we may be able to receive some virtues thereby. It is necessary that we know the certain rule of allegation and suspension, and the manner which the art requires, viz., that they be done under a certain and suitable constellation, and that they be done with wire or silken threads, with hair or sinews of certain animals. And things that are to be wrapped up must be done in the leaves of herbs, or the skins of animals, or fine cloths, and the like, according to the suitableness of things. As, if you would procure the solary virtue of any thing, this being wrapped up in bay leaves, or the skin of a lion, hang it about thy neck with a golden thread, or a silken thread of a yellow color, whilst the sun rules in the heavens, so thou shalt be endued with the solary virtue of that thing. But if thou dost desire the virtue of any saturnine thing, thou shalt in like manner take that thing while Saturn rules, and wrap it in the skin of an ass, or in a cloth used at a funeral, especially if you desire it for sadness, and with a black thread hang it about thy neck. In like manner we must conceive of the rest. Chapter 47. Of magical rings and their compositions. Rings, also, which were always much esteemed of by the ancients, when they were opportunely made, do in like manner impress their virtue upon us, inasmuch as they do affect the spirit of him that carries them with gladness or sadness, and render him courteous or terrible, bold or fearful, amiable or hateful, inasmuch as they do fortify us against sickness, poisons, enemies, evil spirits, and all manner of hurtful things, or at least will not suffer us to be kept under them. Now, the manner of making these kinds of magical rings is this, viz., when any star ascends fortunately, with the fortunate aspect or conjunction of the moon, we must take a stone and herb that is under that star, and make a ring of the metal that is suitable to this star, and in it fasten the stone, putting the herb or root under it, not omitting the inscriptions of images, names, and characters, as also the proper suffumigations, but we shall speak more of these in another place, where we shall treat of images and characters. So we read in Philostratus Jarcus that a wise prince of the Indies bestowed 7 rings made after this manner, marked with the virtues and names of the 7 planets, to Apollonius, of which he wore every day of the week one thereof, distinguishing them in their order according to the names of the days, as is set forth by astrologers, viz., Sunday, the ring marked with the virtues and inscribed with the name and seal of the sun, that planet which ruleth over Sunday, and from which the day taketh its name. Monday, the ring of the virtue's seal and name of the moon. Tuesday, that inscribed unto Mars. Wednesday, that unto Mercury. Thursday, that inscribed unto Jupiter. Friday, that unto Venus. And Saturday, that unto the planet Saturn, seeing as Saturday is the last day of the week, and hath correspondence with the last end of life, and is ruled by Saturn, which carries the sickle of death. And it is said that Apollonius, by the benefit of these 7 magical rings, lived above 130 years, as also that he always retained the beauty and vigor of his youth. In like manner Moses, the lawgiver and ruler of the Hebrews, being skilled in the magic of the Egyptians, is said by Josephus to have made rings of love and oblivion. There was also, as saith Aristotle, amongst the Cyrenians, a ring of Battus, which could procure love and honor. We read also that Odemus, a certain philosopher, made rings against the bites of serpents, bewitchings, and evil spirits. The same doth Josephus relate of Solomon. Also we read in Plato that Gyges, the king of Lydia, had a ring of wonderful and strange virtues, the seal of which, when he turned it toward the palm of his hand, rendered him invisible. Nobody could see him, but he could see all things, and by the opportunity of which ring he deceived the queen, and slew the king his master, and killed whomsoever he thought stood in his way. And in these villainies no one could see him. And at length, by the benefit of this ring, he became king of Lydia himself. Note: notwithstanding the many exaggerated accounts like this one of King Gyges, the editor desires to give his unqualified assent as to the occult properties of specifically prepared magical rings. When a boy, he got a copy of an old book entitled The History and Poetry of Finger Rings, which contains much curious information on the subject, and from that time to this he has, by personal experiment and much study in connection with other occult arts that bear upon the matter, became confident that rings may be made that will ensure many good things to their possessors, warding off and curing diseases, guarding against evil transits and other dangerous influences, and those which will favorably influence one's station in life, and procure other ardently desired things and ends. The Masonic ring will gradually take on occult power if its owner yields intelligent assistance on every call, methodically performing his regular society duties, thereby infusing his ring with Masonic virtues. Of course, a properly prepared ring may seemingly fall of its specified object, but we are inclined to believe that they are helpful, however little their effect may be noticed in every case. We warn our readers against the numerous charlatans who sell so-called magical rings. Magical rings are never sold as such. Whatever virtue may exist in a ring, the owner alone confirms and binds. All that any other person can do is to properly instruct how such a ring should be made and worn. Any so-called prophet or oracle that now disgraces and perverts true occult art will most probably lay claim to this knowledge, as will those astrologers and gifted pretenders in America who hide their crude acquirements and practices behind high-sounding names. I say, quote, in America, unquote, because in England, even eminent practitioners are prohibited by British law from doing work for the public and are forced, for self-protection, to serve under assumed names. Such a condition not prevailing in this country, it is safe to regard those who assume titles as either charlatans or who act from a very superficial knowledge. There may possibly be honorable exceptions to this rule, but we doubt it. Consult yourself, therefore, regarding a personal occult ring, selecting the metal, stone, and design that you are most pleased with. Then you have made a proper start, and, in a great many cases, need go no further. Thus every plain gold marriage ring becomes a magical ring. As the courtship is exalted, so will be the potency of the ring. The wife may often owe her security to the marriage ring, and should always wear it. To lose the marriage ring portends evil, and another one heavier and engraven with the first names of the couple, like Jack and Mary. And the marriage date should be procured as soon as circumstances will permit. Every ring, being a circle, contains occult force and symbolizes the eternal. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Midwest Coven Cast Presents Weekend Reads. Join me next week for the next installment as we continue through Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa's 3 books of occult philosophy or magic. For more information about Midwest Coven Cast, you can visit our website at midwestcovencast.com. You can also follow us on social media at Midwest Coven Cast on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, or at Midwest Coven on Twitter. We hope to see you there. Until next time, Coven, blessed be.